Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And joining me on this episode, of course, the last episode we had the Orlando Ledbetter. This episode, we going back a little bit of ATL action again. Joining me, used to be writing for the Falcoholic. I remember those days. Mr. Eric Robinson. What's going on, man?
Another day, another dollar, man. Another day, another dollar. How you feeling?
Hey, I'm making it, man. It's almost the weekend.
Yeah, you're right. It's almost the weekend.
So speaking of making it and trying to get there,
yes,
we got to talk about the Atlanta Falcons, man.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you know, it's almost like they're trying to kind of turn things around, trying to redo the roster.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're kind of in the midst of that. And, of course, the first domino that happened with that was the trade of Matt Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts when that happened?
You know, honestly, from day one of, Terry Fontenot being hired and Arthur Smith being hired, I knew from that moment on that the Matt Ryan era was going to end sooner than a lot of fans anticipated. And I wasn't really all that surprised that it was this offseason that it occurred. It was a move that you see a lot of young regimes make. When they come into certain situations, when they come into most situations, they usually within the first 2 or 3 years, they usually get their guy, their young quarterback that they're going to, plant the flag with and say, we're going to build around him and see where it goes. And I expected that to happen. Like I said, this offseason, making that trade, well, I was more surprised about how everything went down. I expected them at some point to go for a young QB. I just didn't expect it to be Deshaun Watson. Now that was just a complete that was a curveball that no one expected. But it just goes to show you that they felt within themselves it's time. We'll see if it works out on both sides. But I knew from the jump that this is something that was going to happen.
Got you. Now, of course, the next step in that, or the first step in that, obviously, was you had the pickup of Marcus Mariota. You had the different moves around that, of course. You had the draft of Kyle Pitts previously.
Right.
And now you bring in Drake London. What were your thoughts on the pickup of Drake London?
I'll be honest. At the jump when the pick was made, I was in the production room on campus at ESPN, listening to the picks come in. And there's a little system set up where we kind of get told of the picks a few minutes ahead in advance before the commissioner comes on stage. So we were told of who was being selected. And at first, I wasn't too enthused, I'll be honest with you, because I felt like at that point in time, the need was greater for an edge rusher than a receiver. But, after taking London, diving into his tape just a little bit more, I'm okay with the pick. And I see what Arthur Smith is trying to do. He's trying to slowly but surely build a physical brand of football in the passing game. And it started with Kyle Pitts. Now it starts with a 6'4", 220-pound receiver in Drake London. So it's a building block. It's not going to elevate the entire receiving core for the Falcons because, the receiving core is still, in need of some infusion of talent, but it's a nice start for a guy that, that brings his physicality, his ability to still be a big time playmaker, despite not having the top end speed that most teams want. The guy had 88 catches last year in only 8 games and still won Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year. So that just goes to show you right there. Teams knew who Drake London was when they saw USC on the schedule, and they were still not able to stop him. So,
yeah,
we'll see.
Interesting to see who they picked up. It's going to be interesting to see the amount of mismatches that Arthur Smith is able to create because, of course, when he was here in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I reside, he was actually a guy that liked to create mismatches. I always lean to this example because this is probably the most perfect example. When he had AJ Brown on the outside. He kind of motioned the guy outside of him, which kind of bumped Buster Screen, which is the slot guy, right on him. And basically the outside corner. So that's a mismatch. AJ Brown was Buster Screen.
Right.
And touchdown, basically ran a kind of like a wheel fly pattern.
Yeah.
A fly pattern out the slot, basically. And it was a touchdown. It was pretty easy. So those are the type of things you could kind of probably look forward to, honestly, with him.
And a lot of people are thinking that he is exclusively an X receiver, but you look at his numbers, you break down, take a deep dive into his numbers. London lined up, a considerable amount inside the slot. And when it comes to those type of formations, those type of mismatches, I trust Arthur Smith to put his guys in those certain situations. Now, what intrigues me is the fact that you're able to have, if you're a defender, you break the huddle, right? If you're a slot corner, you're lined out, in the slot or whatever, you have no one lined up over you. You see there's probably two wide, maybe two tight end set. All of a sudden, Drake London motions inside, and right before the snap, he's lined up head up over you as a slot receiver. Like, those are the type of mismatches I'm looking forward to see, where you're able to put the defense in an uncomfortable situation right before the snap. And I think he's going to be able to do that. If everything goes together with his development, I'll be honest with you, I think he has a Brandon Marshall type ceiling. But I also feel that they're going to use him the same way that the Saints use Marcus Colston for 10 years in New Orleans. And remember, his effectiveness as a 6'4" receiver, running a 4.5, his effectiveness was a lot within the hashes, inside the slot. He had 10 years in New Orleans, 8 years over 900 or more receiving yards, and 6 of those years 1,000 receiving yards. So he was productive even as a big body slot receiver. And I think that's kind of sort of how Arthur Smith is going to utilize him, at least early on.
Right. And for those that are listening and watching, Eric is very extensive with his knowledge. That's why I chose to bring him on the show. So he definitely is knocking it out the ballpark, breaking it down with the X's and O's. Also want to say that I kind of heard this term, so I've kind of adopted a little bit for this show where they're this kind of diving into Atlanta. Titan South. I've noticed that Arthur Smith's there, Dean Pease is there, you got Rashaan Evans, you got Mariota, Fursker. I mean, you go back further, Andy Levitre, Bleedy Ray Wilson. I mean, it's been a lot of kind of Titans leaving and joining the Falcons. So, I mean, I know you probably don't like that moniker with the Titan South, but I think it in terms of the leadership and kind of the pieces, you can kind of see where I kind of drew that conclusion, perhaps.
It's weird because this offseason alone, they've signed, and I take that back. Go back to the last offseason as well. Remember, they brought in Cordero Patterson from Chicago. And then you come in this offseason, Ryan Pace gets fired, the former GM of the Bears. He gets hired within the front office of the Falcons, and all of a sudden you see former Bears, you see Demir Bird, you see Elijah Wilkinson, you see they signed Nick Kwiatkowski today at linebacker. All these guys that are like former Chicago players, and you're like, wait a minute, what is going on here? I don't get it. Tease Tabor, the former safety for the Bears last year. It's something is weird. Like, I don't get it. It's the way the roster's set up right now. There's a lot of former Titans and Bears players on this roster right now. It's ridiculous. They said we got Rashaan Evans this offseason as well. Like, it's just I can't explain it. It's very awkward. But you know what? That's the direction that they're going. Then okay, all right. Let's see if it works.
Well, speaking of the AFC South, of course, the Titans. I do have to talk about the AFC South because, of course, I'm not contractually obligated, but this is, an AFC South show, just in the bigger realm of things.
Right.
So we're gonna go back to Matt Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Ryan is now a member of the Indianapolis Colts. He replaced Carson Wentz, who Carson Wentz got traded to the Washington Commanders. So with Matt Ryan replacing Carson Wentz, Do you think he is that missing piece to get them back to the playoffs, one, and to potentially take them on a deep ride?
Yeah, I think he is. I think Matt Ryan still has some juice left. Is he the Matt Ryan of 2016? You know, the MVP year? I don't think so. No, I think he is slightly declining a little bit, but I still think he is a top 12 quarterback in the NFL, and I still think he's able to win some games. And I think, you know, in the right settings with the right pieces around him, he's still able to win some playoff games, to be quite honest with you. And I think it was a hell of a move for the Colts to pick him up, and being the fact that they have a tremendous offensive line. You know, they have an elite running back in Jonathan Taylor. There are a couple of things that are still missing, in my opinion. I like Michael Pittman Jr., but they still, in my eyes, they still don't have that guy that can really, you know, make a ton of plays consistently in the passing game. Maybe that's Alec Pierce, the rookie out of Cincinnati. Maybe if Paris Campbell is able to stay healthy, we see how that goes. But there's still some question marks there. But I think bringing in Matt Ryan, I believe they were able to check that box where you need that veteran quarterback that's been there before, that's able to get there, and I think he's able to do that, especially with Frank Right. And so I think they're going to work very well together, those two.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see if they try to add someone, you know, like maybe a Jarvis Landry, perhaps. That'll be
Right.
interesting to see if that happens. But,
Right.
you know, of course, we still got the summer. We still got the post June 1 cuts and things like that to happen as well.
Or
Speaking,
maybe a reunion with Julio. I mean,
maybe so. Maybe so. But from what I hear, from a particular Colts fan, it kind of gives him Andre Johnson vibes. And that Colts fan knows
when
who he
Andre
is.
went to Tennessee, okay.
No. When he went to up there, and then he came here.
Oh, when he went
went
to
there
Indy.
for-
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
he went.
okay.
He didn't even make the team. I
Forgot
don't
he
think.
went to Indy before Tennessee.
Yes, he went
Jeez,
to Indy.
I
Him and
didn't know.
Frank
I
Gore.
forgot about that.
Him and Frank Gore went there together, and then
Oh,
because remember Chuck Pagano was the coach, and Chuck Pagano had roots with them back to Miami.
oh
So
man.
he went there, and then he ended up in Tennessee, and he of course never made the team. So,
I
so
forgot all
yeah,
about that.
yes sir,
Nothing
yes
against
sir.
Andre Johnson, but that just goes to show a little impact. I forgot all about that. I really did.
Hey, it happens, man. It happens. But speaking of impact, the Titans are definitely going to be impacted by the missing wide receiver, their star wide receiver, AJ Brown. Of course, he got traded this offseason to the Philadelphia Eagles. NFC East, have fun. He's definitely going to be an exciting piece for the Philadelphia Eagles. But in terms of the Titans, of course, they had to figure out a way to try to replace him. Of course, they pick a guy that's kind of a prototype of him, and Traylon Burks.
Yep.
They get a steal, which a lot of people say is a steal, in Malik Willis, the quarterback.
Whew.
They get an Hassan Haskins to back up Derrick Henry, which I think that was a solid move. And they have it. Then hold on, the two moves they actually I think may pay off pretty immediate dividends. Chig Okonkwo from Maryland. I mean, he mirrors Jonnu Smith. So he can do a lot of the same things Jonnu Smith did when he was here in Tennessee. And also Kyle Phillips. The Titans don't have a slot receiver. He fits that bill. So overall, it seems like the Titans and Teron Davenport from ESPN, he wrote this article. He actually dropped it today, talking about how certain players mimic certain players from the past, like Traylon Burks, AJ Brown, Chig to Jonnu Smith, and Kyle Phillips to Adam Humphries. Yeah. That was the year that Ryan Tannehill had his best year here.
Right.
So with those pieces being added, and a lot of people are like saying they're going to be down, they're not going to be that great. I mean, do you think people are severely underrating how good the Titans can be, especially with their defense?
I wouldn't say severely underrating. I will say this. Losing AJ Brown is you're going to see it. You're going to feel it. And hopefully Robert Woods is still able to be Robert Woods pre-injury. And he was doing his thing with Matt Stafford and the Rams before he got injured last year. But that offense wasn't able to miss a beat without him, to be quite honest with you. So hopefully he's able to return back to his normal self. But this offense is still built around Derrick Henry in that run game. And I think I really liked Hassan Haskins a lot coming out of Michigan. 6'1", 225 pounds, physical runner. I mean, you better bring your hard hat when you're trying to tackle him, man. Bring the pads, bring everything, because it's not going to be an easy task. But I think he complements Derrick Henry so well because you don't lose that element of physicality in the run game. If Henry's off the field, that's another 230-pound bruiser right there. That's going to tote the rock. And I feel because of that, that's going to help Treylon Burks kind of ease into this situation a little bit. It's going to help Robert Woods get back to his normal self. The defense, granted, they were not, statistically, they were not great, but late in the year, they were very opportunistic. And you can make a case, especially in that Cincy game, like they probably should have won that game. And if they did, it was largely because of the defense. That they were able to do their job. And I wouldn't say that they're severely underrating the Titans, but there's still a massive question mark hanging over Ryan Tannehill. And he's getting a significant pay increase this year. I think his cap hit is worth $28 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Roughly about that.
Yeah, so he's getting paid like a quarterback that needs to win some games and win in the playoffs, and that's one thing that we really haven't seen from Ryan Tannehill yet. So outside of Ryan Tannehill, I think this is at worst, this is a good enough team to win the AFC South. Depending on matchup, they may win a couple games, and you never know. That may equate to a postseason run, but that question mark over Ryan Tannehill has to be answered at some point. If it's not, that's where Malik Willis comes into play.
Yeah, I think Malik Willis is in a great spot because he doesn't necessarily have to start this year. He can sit and watch and catch up on the mistakes and catch up on the good things as well. I think
I do like the long-term potential with him and Treylon Burks. Like that is that's nice. I really and if you can equate Haskins into that as well, I really like that nucleus for the future for the Titans.
I really think Kyle Phillips will have a bigger impact than what anyone thinks he was too. But because they don't have any, besides Kenny and Slot, they don't have anyone else. So I think he actually runs better routes, and he kind of actually reminds you of a guy out in Las Vegas, Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah.
So
he's a very clean route runner. Phillips is
very much.
The production wasn't really there. It didn't wow you, but you throw in the tape and this guy, he's very crafty and he's able. That's how he's able to separate himself from defenders because of his route running, his footwork. Very polished.
Definitely. Now, as far as polish, I wouldn't say that any of these players are totally polished, but the Jaguars definitely threw the bags at them. Jacksonville Jaguars. Cam Robinson, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. You got Oluquan from the Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who did they not throw the bag at this offseason? But the thing is, they can spend all this money, but it's going to come down to Trevor Lawrence and what he can do. And also it's going to come down, can they not be the defense that I affectionately call the jelly donut defense?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say not jelly donut. I call them plain donut because they're empty in the middle and they have everything on the outside.
Right.
So, I want to, can the Jaguars actually make some noise this year? What do you think, man?
This year, no. I don't expect to. But I do think hiring Doug Peterson is a great first step. Last year was a complete disaster for the Jaguars from the start, and it's all due to Urban Meyer. It's embarrassing that your rookie quarterback is the more mature individual over your veteran head coach that's won national titles at the college football level and is well known around the coaching circles. And Trevor Lawrence was still the more reliable of the two. You couldn't trust anything about Urban Meyer, and it distracted the team enough on the field, and it was a nightmare. But I think getting a guy like Doug Peterson is going to help the organization. He's won a Super Bowl in Philly, which is a nice feather in the cap, and I think he's able to really be that tutor for Trevor Lawrence going forward. As far as their spending this offseason, I mean, they splurged. I don't know if it was wise. I mean, giving Kristen Kirk the money that he's giving Zay Jones the amount of money that he's getting. I don't know if it was wise, but they tried. At least we can say that. We're not going to take that away from them. They tried. I do think getting a healthy Travis Etienne is going to be significant for them, especially in that run game, because I think they're going to try to get back to running that football behind Doug Peterson. Because if you go back to that Eagles, that 2017 season when they won the Super Bowl, Nick Foles was making plays, but that backfield had 4 or 5 running backs that's able to rotate in and keep that running game going. So I think the Jags are going to get back to that, even though they have Trevor Lawrence number 1 overall, even though they spent so much money at the receiver spot. I think they're going to really try to elevate that run game and kind of sort of balance that whole offensive approach out. This year, I don't expect much, but I will say give it about 2 years, and I would not be surprised if they're starting to kind of sort of have the Titans and the Colts kind of sort of look over their shoulder in the AFC South a little bit.
I'll say this. I'll say maybe towards the end of this year they may be doing a few things. Honestly, I give them that.
You know what? They may be one of those teams, honestly, that we see every year when it's week 14, 15, 16, 17, and they kind of sort of do what they did to the Colts last year. Like they get a win at the end of the year that keeps the team out of the playoffs. I would not be surprised if that happens again.
I'll say this: they the Colts get tired of seeing them because they haven't won down there since 2016.
It's been a while.
But I'll say this though: I wish that Olakon and Miles Jack got a chance to play side by side, but unfortunately, it just didn't happen. That's not what they had in mind, and it is what it is. And Cam Robinson finally got his extension, finally got paid, which I was shocked. I thought they were going to get rid of him, but hey.
I thought they were going to let him walk too. I really did. And even though they lost Miles Jack, they drafted Devin Lloyd, who is kind of sort of a jack of all trades when it comes to a linebacker spot. He can do a little bit of everything. So it's kind of interesting. I will also say this. I was never fully on board with Trayvon Walker at number 1. They see something that I didn't see. I don't know what it is. They see potential. All right, great. But if I'm drafted number 1 overall, I want someone that I know was able to dominate at the collegiate level. And to be quite honest with you, Walker didn't do that. So they're really banking on a lot of growth from him. And we'll see. We'll see if that pays off.
This pick, I'll tell you, that pick right there was all Trent Baalke, because Trent Baalke wanted that. The ownership wanted Aiden Hutchinson.
Yep.
And he got his pick. So basically, he's putting his job on the line for Trayvon Walker, which he thinks is an Alden Smith clone, which that's good in some instances and bad in others. You don't want him to clone some stuff.
All right. Hutchinson reminds me a lot of Joey Bosa. And Hutchinson, he's productive. He's a sure thing. He's going to his floor is probably 8 or 9 sacks a season, which is decent. It may not be good for number 2 overall, but it's decent. But he proved it at the collegiate level that he can able to make plays, change the game, and disrupt schemes and things of that nature. Trayvon Walker has it. I mean, I think Trayvon only had 5 or 6 sacks in his collegiate career in 3 years.
Right.
All right.
That's hoping for a lot.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. That's hoping for a ton.
Now, I wouldn't be, I can't, talk about the AFC South without talking about the Texans, of course. They fooled a lot of people taking Stingley with their first pick in the draft. Then they picked offensive lineman. I get it. You take a defensive back. I'm not sure you take Stingley, but it is what it is. They need a defensive identity. I'm glad they picked somebody to block for Davis Mills. But the one thing I'm wondering, who's rushing the passer? They didn't really select someone to rush the passer, and it's baffling to me that they didn't select someone.
I was on a Twitter space the other night, and someone tossed that question my way about the results of the Texans draft and what I thought about it. And I said, I was always high on Stingley. Stingley was always a top 5 player overall to me. So getting him at 3, I thought it was a really good pick. But I told him, just looking at the roster without seeing them practice or anything like that, that front 7, who's making plays? Somebody has to. There's not much to build on in that front 7. You have Stingley, great. They got Jalen Petrie, safety out of Baylor, in round 2. I think those 2 guys are going to be some solid cornerstones for the team going forward. But like you mentioned, there's no one to sack. Who's really consistently going to get after the quarterback? And that front 7 has literally question marks everywhere. So I do like grabbing John Mechie out of Alabama to tag along with Brandon Cooks. I do like getting Dameon Pierce, running back out of Florida, in the 4th round, I believe. So it's adding some talent around Davis Mills, and it really does look like they're trying to see what they have in Davis Mills. They're giving him a fair chance, and that's all he can really ask for at this point. But year 1 for the Lovie Smith era in Houston is not going to equate to a lot of wins. I can tell you that right now. But this draft is a really solid start in the right direction. I really like this class as a whole.
Gotcha. I just wish they would have gotten a pass rusher, but hey, it is what it is. They do what they do.
It made sense. It would have made sense to get a pass rusher in the 2nd round compared to getting the safety in Petrie, but that's the direction they went. But yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Like who's going to rush the pass? I don't know. They might need one of us to get out there by the end of the year. I don't know.
They might either that or get the ghost of Whitney Marcellus.
Something, or call Arizona, see what Arizona wants, and see if they can get JJ back out of something. I don't know, but somebody got to do it.
Right. Now, of course, we went through the AFC South. We did talk about your Atlanta Falcons, but of course, it wouldn't be the Tour in the AFC South show without playing the game. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. First up, Warwick Dunn or Michael Turner?
Damn, this is the type of game we're playing. Give me Turner, man. Give me Turner. Turner was hard to tackle, and for a guy that's played some football in his day, played on the defensive side of the ball. The one thing I hate, and one thing I always disliked, I don't want to use that hate term, but the one thing I always disliked with those type of running backs that are just so tough to tackle, because you have to do it for 4 quarters, and by the time that 4th quarter rolls around, you don't feel like tackling like that no more. So you just give me Turner. I'll take that.
Yeah, I definitely understand that one, man. Being a former defensive back myself, so.
You 4th quarter, You already beat up for 3 quarters. You like, look, man, just trip them up or something. I mean, I ain't trying to wrap them up no more.
Right. All right, we got Michael Vick or Matt Ryan.
Oh my God! I just had this debate at work today. I'm taking Matt.
All right.
I love Vic. I love what he did for the city, even though that's not my city, but I love what he did for the city. I love what he did for the culture. I love what he did for the sport of football. But the man was only there for 6 years. And, the production wasn't that great. It was good, and I felt like he was going in the right direction. I felt like the Falcons probably could have made a Super Bowl appearance with them, but you can't dispute a guy like Matt Ryan who's throwing for 60,000 yards. Like, I feel he is a future Hall of Famer. Maybe not first ballot, but I think he does wear a gold jacket when it's all said and done.
Gotcha. Speaking of folks wearing gold jackets, Tom Brady or Drew Brees?
Oh, give me Brady, man. Look, I've seen plenty of Drew Brees. I get it. He set records. He posted a lot of numbers, but for a guy that was that good for that long in New Orleans, only one Super Bowl, one Super Bowl appearance. I mean, all right, it's fine. It's fine. I get it, but it's kind of sort of along the same lines of Aaron Rodgers, and everybody loves Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers has been to the dance only once,
right?
And he's had to throw passes to Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams for over half his career. He's only been there once. So give me Brady, man.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers to me is the greatest regular season quarterback of all time.
Right.
I'll give him that title.
Right. I mean, at least Peyton's been there 3 times. Like, come on, like we thought Peyton was heading down that road at one point too, but come on, man, like that says something to me.
Yeah, definitely. And the last one, I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons coaching tree.
Oh boy,
Dan Reeves or Dan Quinn.
Oh God, I'll coach him. Don't worry about it. I'll coach him. I'll do it. If I have to make a choice, I'll take Quinn, but I don't feel that enthused about it. But I feel he's the one, of course, he was, when it comes to playing style of the league, being up to date with how the league is being played, I think he's more adaptable to the league than Dan Reeves. With that being said, I was not the greatest fan of Dan Quinn and his scouting and his player selection. I think what you saw this past year is really what Dan Quinn actually is. A guy that can take some given talent, add the necessary tweaks, and make a product look good on the field. But if he has to go shopping, I don't trust what he's going to put in the cart. I'll be honest with you. That's just me.
He's going to put some. You were saying he's going to put some rotten apples in there.
He's going to put some rotten apples in there. He's going to get some stuff from the damage section. He's going to get some great value. He's not going to get anything. He ain't going to get much name brand, and it ain't going to taste right. It ain't going to taste. I'd rather give him a cupboard full of food and say, do something with that. Than let him go shopping. That's just me.
I understand. When you talked about shopping, the first thing I thought about was Big Daddy, movie with Adam Sandler, and he had the kid just throwing the cans down and getting them for discounts. That's the first thing I thought about.
Yep. That's Dan Quinn right there. And again, he's a great guy, great personality. Team players love him. But that particular aspect, when it comes to scouting the players that you want, getting them and putting them in your scheme and in your organization, he's dropped the ball on that several times. And with that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets another coaching job in the next couple of years. But I don't trust him in that aspect.
Yep, can't trust it. And this brings us to the end of another episode of Touring the AFC South. Eric, I want to thank you for coming on. If you can, tell everyone anything you're working on, where they can find you on social media, whatever you want to tell the good folks.
Oh, man, you can find me on Twitter at @Eric_Robinson. Not really working on anything at the moment, but I will, if you don't mind. I want to do a plug. Make sure you catch NFL Live Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am on the production team for NFL Live. So that's why I just want to make that plug. Not to mention the NFL Live is hosting the schedule release special that's on right now as well. So tune into that. Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah. So for those that didn't know who I had on the show, I pulled a fast one on you. There you go. the draft, the NFL schedule release, boom, all that, all in one. Here we go. We brought it all home. But yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for listening. You've been watching and listening to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.